Hi folks, welcome again to another episode on my channel. This is Shiv Verma, and I welcome you to please give me some feedback, give me some information as to what you would like to see. But today's topic is a topic that you may or may not agree with me on, but I want to tell you about the rationale that I use in every situation that I possibly can to shoot in high-res mode. So you may ask, what is high-res mode? Now, not all cameras are capable of doing high-res mode. The Panasonic Lumix series, the S series, some of the G series, the Olympus cameras, the Sony cameras, and I believe some of the others are also capable of creating high-resolution images. Now, the way that the cameras capture this is by shifting the sensor by either 1 pixel or half pixel in various directions, and they use the in-body stabilization mechanism to do the sensor shifting. The process basically involves shifting the sensor such that multiple images are captured and then a single image is created, whether it be in camera or out of camera in some cases, to create a very high resolution image. For example, the Lumix S1R, which typically would capture a 40 plus megapixel image, can create up to a 180 plus megapixel image. So with that information, the amount of information captured, you can do a bunch of things. You can create images that are huge as far as print sizes are concerned, or you can crop in very tight into the image. There is one issue that you have to deal with, is that if the subject that you're photographing is moving, then the likelihood of a good capture is not going to be there. Now, there are secondary modes that help alleviate some of that problem, but clearly that is not something that would be desirable if there is too much movement. Now, the other thing that you've got to be aware of is that you do need to use a tripod and keep the camera absolutely stable. Stable to the extent where you need to give the camera some time to settle. So if you are going to do high-res images, do give the camera at least a 2-second interval between the time that the shutter is pressed and the camera starts capturing images. So what do I use this for? Yes, I use this for creating high-resolution images, but more importantly, I noticed that there was something else that was happening in the high-resolution images that I captured. I found that the color fidelity was absolutely incredible. There was tremendous amount of color detail. The gradations were absolutely phenomenal, and I just got hooked on it. So wherever possible, if I'm doing landscapes or I'm shooting in studio or I'm doing product photography or still life photography, I'm going to shoot in high-res mode, because not only do I get a high-resolution image, but I get the color fidelity that otherwise is not achievable. So let me walk you through how this happens. And I've created a small presentation that I'm going to walk you through. So why shoot in high-res mode? That's what I entitled this, and let me walk you through what the camera has in it and how we utilize that function. All cameras have the ability to capture the RGB color space. Now, whether it does it in sRGB or Adobe RGB, don't worry about that for the moment. Just believe me that the camera captures red, blue, and green. Now, the concept of these colors is based upon how our eyes see things, and a Bayer pattern was invented by Bayer, and it basically involves one red pixel or one red area, one equal blue area, and 2 equal green areas. So if you look at the Bayer pattern, which is this, you'll see that you have a green pixel, a blue pixel, a green pixel, a blue pixel in the first row. Correspondingly, in the second row, you have a red, green, and so on, and this continues. And this formation is the buildup of your sensor. Now, the sensor is incapable of capturing color. There is no such thing as color. It captures data. And if you were to look at it from a very simplistic binary point of view, each of these either on or off would be a 1 or a 0. So it would be 1 for green, 1 for blue, based upon what the color was that it was sensing. Now, how does it do this? They actually have what's known as RGB filters. A red filter, a green filter, a blue filter. And this filter allows the RGB light to either pass through red, green, or blue, which is then digitally captured on the sensor. And the resulting image, if you were to look at it on this perspective, would be nothing but a bunch of red, green, and blue dots. How do you eventually get the image? We'll get to that in a moment. But let me go back to what this image is. This was an image that I captured when I got the S1R, the Panasonic S1R, and I took it to the Palouse and I was photographing, and I noticed that if I was to shoot, and this camera is capable of shooting high res and concurrently capture a standard resolution image. And I noticed that the color depth and the color fidelity of the high-res image was a lot more than the standard image. So I started doing a little bit of, legwork and homework and analysis, and come to the realization that in high-res mode, a lot more is happening than just creating an image that is a capture and a combination of multiple images just put together. So let's see what's happening over here. We have a concept where the sensor shifts. So it uses the image stabilization mechanism, and thereby there is no image stabilization when you're shooting high res. The sensor is going to move, and in this particular case, let's assume it's going to move 1 pixel at a time. So the sensor takes one image, then moves left 1 pixel, moves up 1 pixel, moves right 1 pixel, and so on. And in this movement, every receptor below the filters, if you were to look at it that way, since the sensor is moving and the filters are stationary, or vice versa, if you were to look at what is happening, every receptor is able to get data based upon each color that is correspondingly available to it through the filter. And instead of what the camera was going to be doing in a standard image shot, where the Bayer pattern basically captures red, green, blue in its native state, and then has to do what's known as demosaicing and interpolation to create the image, where it says, well, this is red, what's the neighboring pixel? And the neighboring pixel is blue. So it says, okay, so red plus blue is going to be in between the concept of purples or magentas or whatever. And similarly with the green-blue situation, the green-red situation. And all this is basically computational. It isn't real color information. It is what the camera is basically computing to create the image. Now, if you can capture the exact color on every receptor as seen by the light passing through the filter, you have very little interpolation to do. You have very little demosaicing to do. And you will have a lot more color fidelity. Now, there's also something else that takes place. It's the gradation of the color that is so smooth. There is no banding. There's absolutely no degradation as far as going from light to dark or dark to light. And your high-res images now are not just high-resolution images that you can crop down and get data from, but they're also very, very color concentrated, and the color fidelity is absolutely phenomenal. I want to give you an example of how best you can try it. I mean, and that's what I want to show you. So what I did was I took a subject that was just red. I mean, it's not exactly 255 are, but it was red. So I took a shot of that. Now in the single shot mode, when I captured the image and I blew it up to see the actual pixels by, blowing it up till you get a full mosaic of pixels, I saw dark and light reds. But in the high resolution shot exactly the same way, because the camera was set to capture one single resolution image and then one high resolution image, there was no color distortion. There was no darks, no lights, no nothing. And now let me just take you one step further. This is the enlarged view of 4 pixels from the single image capture. And you can see the top left and the bottom right corners are darker or more saturated than the other two. And that's what interpolation and demosaicing does. It takes away from the fidelity. Let's go back to this image. Look at the difference here on the single shot image versus the high resolution shot image. There is a smooth red all throughout all those pixels, whereas on the single shot it isn't. So hopefully this gives you an idea of why I personally believe that you should always shoot in high resolution mode if you have the opportunity to do so. Yes, you have to put your camera on a tripod. Yes, you have to do a little bit of care and cajoling to make sure that the camera doesn't shake. You have to set your timer so that the camera is in fact going to shoot after it's stabilized. Typically 2 seconds is enough. You might want to give it 5 seconds. And most of the cameras that are capable of doing high resolution images do give you the option of how much time needs to elapse before the images are captured. So if this doesn't satisfy the need to shoot high res, I don't know what will, but I firmly believe that if I'm going to shoot landscapes and I don't have a situation where, the trees are blowing or something, I'm going to shoot in high res mode. If I'm going to shoot in studio, definitely I'm going to shoot in high res mode because I know it's in a controlled environment and things are not going to shake. That basically concludes what I wanted to show you as far as the rationale behind shooting high resolution images. Clearly it's your choice, but if you do want good color, if you do want the fidelity, if you want that really beautiful color rendition and gradation, then please do shoot in high res mode if your camera is capable of doing it. If not, unfortunately, the next upgrade, look for cameras that have that particular facility available. I want to spend just a little bit of time if you're so interested. Otherwise, you can switch off at this juncture, and I will clearly at this point thank you for having watched this video. If you liked what you saw, give me a thumbs up. As always, I'd love to have you subscribe, and do hit that notification button so you get notified of future videos. The second part of this is really I just want to show you how I set up high resolution mode in the Panasonic Lumix S1R. If that's not the camera that you have, clearly this may be of no interest to you. But most cameras have very similar features and very similar functions that we can quickly walk through. So let me switch over to the view of the menu system of the camera. What you're seeing on the screen is the back of my camera, and I'm going to just press the menu button, and I have it on my personal menu system, but let's just go to set this camera into manual mode, go into the menu system, or actually the image quality menu, which is the first icon, the camera icon, and the first page of the menu system. And on the first page of the menu system, if I go down, you will see the one but the lowest menu setting called high resolution mode. If I click on that, it says high resolution mode, and the first item is start. Then the next item is a simultaneous recording of a normal shot. So this is what I was talking about earlier, is that the camera can capture a single raw file, which is in normal mode, as it would for any images, and then a series of images that then combines into a high-resolution file. The next menu item is shutter delay. And the shutter delay I've set to 2 seconds, but if I click on it, you can see it can do 1, 2, 4, 8, and so on, up to 30 seconds. Really, if you have a solid tripod, usually 2 seconds is enough. If you have a tripod that you believe may in fact vibrate some, then set it to 4 or 8 seconds. I really see no reason for setting it at 15 seconds unless there's something crazy going on in the setup. So I typically tend to leave it at 2 seconds. And then the next option is the motion blur processing. And there you have mode 1. Basically, motion blur would be captured just the way it is, if there is any. And in mode 2, the motion blur is minimized by doing a little extrapolation and overlay of the images where there was a single shot with no motion blur versus the images that are with motion blur. Most of my work I do in studio in mode 1, for landscape photography in mode 1. And once you have all of this set, just go ahead and click your shutter after you've framed your image, and you will capture 2 images, one which will be a standard resolution image and the other which will be a high resolution image. And that's all there is to it. And by the way, I mean, if for some reason you feel that the high resolution images are not to your expectation, using this, you do still have your standard image that you can use just as you would. So, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Go ahead and use the single image. But clearly you will see a tremendous amount of difference between the 2 images. All right, with that, a second time, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. But in the meantime, please do give it a thumbs up if you like what you saw, and subscribe. I'd love to build up the audience of my channel, and hopefully, as the audience builds up and as you start commenting and giving me ideas of what more to produce, I'd be most happy to do so. And with that, please take care, and I will see you the next time. Bye-bye now.